Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 52. That's Dave Bryan. I am Alex Kozora of SteelersDepot.com. A very happy Friday to Steelers Nation. A happy Friday to you, Dave. And I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm full. I still can barely move. There's like, I think, two pieces of, three slices of maybe a ham left, a bite of corn, a bite of potatoes, and that's it. We of course had to, we started Thanksgiving technically, I guess, Tuesday night, and on into yesterday, of course. So I am about ham and turkeyed out, and I got some blood work coming up here pretty soon as well too. So I need to take it easy for the next 3 or 4 days.
I thought the football games yesterday were the perfect Thanksgiving games. Not that they were like super competitive games, but that's ideal, I think, for Thanksgiving. They're just good enough that occasionally you look up and there's a big play happening or a close ending. But they weren't complete blowouts either. So I thought they were just the perfect just background noise for Thanksgiving dinner yesterday.
Well, of course, with me and not having anybody else in the house except the wife, I was hoping for a little bit. You coming off of that Monday night game,
Right? Yeah.
Nothing was probably going to match up with that. But I enjoyed the Redskins-Cowboys game, and then on into the night was excited to watch the Saints and all. And boy, what an offense they have, and their defense is starting to come around too, especially the play of their front four. And it just goes to show, you get pressure on the quarterback with just four, and get it quickly. What a difference it can make. And in no way did I think the Falcons would be as bad. Now, obviously, the Falcons have had their share of injuries this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But when you look at them offensively, minus, of course, they lost Devontae Freeman to an injury for the season, but they got a lot of weapons still on the offensive side of the ball. And but Matt Ryan, I mean, I don't know what you thought or how closely you watched that game, but just not a lot of great decisions by him. And really, if you look at Matthew Stafford in that game earlier in the day, quarterbacks not playing up to, I guess, par would be the way to describe that, though. But overall entertaining games. And the thing interesting about the Saints, and I've said this a few times, and I'm not a firm believer yet that it's going to happen, but I mean, if the Saints keep winning, and should the Rams slip up here a little bit, let me look at didn't the Saints already beat the Rams, right?
Mm-hmm. And them the only loss.
That's the Rams' only loss. I mean, the Saints, now they go the Cowboys, Buccaneers, and Panthers before they play the Steelers in Week 16. Now the Cowboys obviously are playing better. The Buccaneers are about that shouldn't be much of a challenge for a team like the Saints. And then the Panthers, who knows what you'll get with a key divisional battle there. If the Rams slip up another time, and the Saints run this thing, who knows if that week 16 game against the Steelers will amount to anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it probably still will matter because I imagine it'll be close between the Rams and the Saints. And it's just, they get that last win, so hopefully you can take Week 17 off. Dave, Drew Brees, MVP this year? I think he's got to be your MVP this year. I know there's a lot of good candidates. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to be right up there. But Brees has just been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably him or Mahomes, right? I mean,
yeah.
At this point, I know a lot of people are starting to write, I guess, and talk about, well, why isn't Ben Roethlisberger getting the getting any nod in that whatsoever? I mean, I think it just boils down to mostly inconsistency with Roethlisberger. I mean, let's face it, he's had some clunkers. And, especially coming off the one against Jacksonville as well. I mean, look, Ben, make no mistake about it. Ben is easily, top 5 quarterback in the league, but I just don't see how you put him in the argument for being Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I don't think
MVP or whatever.
Right, yeah, especially MVP. I think he's I'm not even sure if he's going to be top 5 for MVP. I don't think he would be, in my opinion. But
here's one other quick argument that seems to be circulating around related to the Steelers and postseason awards. Should Mike Tomlin be in any consideration for Coach of the Year award?
Well, I think he's always going to be in consideration, and I'm being literal with this because the Steelers are always going to be one of the top teams in football. But is he going to win it? Should he win the actual award? Probably not, because there's always some team that has a turnaround. It's almost an expectations award, where unless you're Bill Belichick and you go 16-0, or there's just no other good candidates, it always goes to some coach that's going to turn everything around, and some team that goes from just terrible the year before to playoff contention the following year.
How much strife do you view Tomlin having to navigate the team through so far this year? I mean, look, the Bell thing was more media driven than anything, right? I mean, yes, you did not have him around, and you probably thought you were going to have him around at maybe 3 different points during the season, but you didn't have him around. You already went through one season where you had to navigate through the whole him not being there for the offseason program and in training camp. Of course, he did show up, the first week of the season. But, and make no mistake about it, the Steelers teams over the years have had drama associated with them in some form or fashion. I mean, how many bonus points does he get for navigating, let's say, the first quarter of the season?
Well, I mean, it's worth noting, and it's certainly well-deserved and should be praised from Tomlin. I agree that a lot of the distractions play out bigger outside that locker room than it does actually inside the locker room. But it all goes back to the culture that Tomlin has helped further, and certainly a big reason why this team stays together and can fight through that adversity. Is enough to get him Coach of the Year? Probably not, because in the minds of the national media, it means less than it does to you or I or the rest of Steelers Nation. But yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. But like I said, it's unlikely to happen because Steelers' record won't be that good. And let's say that the Colts continue to go on their crazy streak, and if they get win the division or get a playoff spot, it could be Frank Reich that becomes Coach of the Year for that giant turnaround in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I agree. I just think, look, I don't want to take anything away from the job Tomlin has done, because he's done a great job at it. But I mean, this who didn't have them right near 7-2
right.
1 at this point? Now, obviously, nobody's going to predict a tie in there. But I mean, quite honestly, I mean, they could have been at this point 7-3, and how many people would bat an eye right now?
Yeah,
I mean,
no one.
You would bat an eye. Let's say that the loss happened against Cleveland, which probably should have. You turn the ball over that many times and you get out of there with a tie, you should feel lucky. But I mean, even if they were 7-3, how many people would be batting an eye right now?
Yeah, nobody. So who do you think is Coach of the Year? Matt Nagy from Chicago might be on the top.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a heck of a job. I mean, McVay, he's already got a season. I mean, I don't think anybody is really shocked about what's going on right now in Los Angeles with the Rams. I mean, the Saints. I don't know if we knew that the Saints were going to be as good as they are right now, 10-1 overall. But I mean, probably a lot of people had them up there. Who else? I mean, that's probably about.
Yeah.
Look, Jason Garrett's done a decent job. And
I don't know about that.
I mean, look, he saved his job probably this year, and probably some Cowboys fans are probably disappointed in that about right now. What about the job being done in Tennessee right now?
Yeah, Mike Vrabel's. They're sitting 5-5. I've had so many injuries. Mariota's been hurt. I think Vrabel's done a nice job. I don't think it's enough to get him in the conversation. It probably comes down to Nagy, Sean Payton. You can throw Tomlin in there. I have no problem with that. McVay. And if you want to go with, Andy Reid too, is just some of the conventional, and Belichick's always going to be in the mix as well. But probably going to be Nagy or Payton is my guess.
And Bill O'Brien has his team at 7-3 overall.
Yeah,
with the Texans as well. So, all right, what else? Should we talk a little bit about the injury report here on this Friday morning? What'd you do for Thanksgiving? Went to the folks, right?
Yep, went to my mom's house. Just had a nice, she's definitely a great cook, and it was nice to have a meal that wasn't sandwich based for the first time in a while. And then just watch some football and hung out with the dog, and just good to kind of get away and recharge.
You didn't eat any lettuce, did you?
No lettuce. Yeah, thank goodness. I was so lettuce based before the news. No,
I
I
don't. You
wasn't.
believe it or not, I don't. Here's a couple interesting tidbits about me. I don't eat lettuce or tomato.
Don't
Uh,
like ever was you don't you just cut it out. You don't like
no,
it.
no, I never have liked it. But I will eat. Here's the funny thing. I'm such a picky eater. I'll of course eat pizza. You know,
Hmm.
but I don't like whole. I like sauce that's sauce. Not
Hmm.
not chunk. Tomato sauce or anything along those lines. I don't eat lettuce. I don't eat tomato. Uh, Geez, what else? Here's another interesting tidbit. The new Lion King. They were previewing the previews for that new movie coming out, which looks, I mean, absolutely spectacular. From what the clip that they showed. But I have never seen the original Lion King.
Really?
Yeah, never
Well,
have seen it. I think that
I
came
guess
out.
you were older when you first came out,
Yeah,
so I
it
guess
was in the
that makes
what, the
sense.
'90s, the late '90s,
Yeah,
and
something like that, somewhere in the 90s.
I don't know. Some people are telling me that it might make me a better human if I watch it. So maybe
Give it
I'll
a shot.
maybe I'll do that around the holidays here. Okay, the injury report for the Steelers as of Thursday. Marcus Gilbert with a knee, Stephon Tuitt with an elbow, still sidelined. It doesn't look as though either of those two guys will play Sunday against the Denver Broncos in Denver. You go back and you watch that injury that Tuitt suffered against the Panthers, and it really just didn't look, all that brutal to me. But I mean, I don't know if how bad of a hyperextension it was. Obviously, it was enough to now force him to miss a couple of games. Mike Tomlin, we already talked about what he had to say about Marcus Gilbert earlier in the week, that he didn't have a setback and just the knee's not healing as fast as he or they would like it to. So I'd go ahead and count on both those guys being out Sunday against the Broncos. A little bit of positive news. Matt Feiler with the pectoral, I guess a strain of some sort, did go limited on Thursday. So we'll see what happens with him on Friday. He, of course, did play every snap against the Jaguars, but Marcus Gilbert, of course, finished the last game that he played with the knee, and then all of a sudden you had the bye week and came up lame there. So we'll have to watch what happens with Matt Feiler. If Matt Feiler's unable to go, Chukwuma Okorofor would, of course, make his first career start, and that would be interesting. The rest of the injury report are guys that outside of Anthony Chickalo, who started the week with that kind of bum ankle, but has practiced fully both Wednesday and Thursday. So barring a setback, I think we should expect Chickalo to play against Denver, and the rest of the guys on the injury report are not injury related. That would be Ramon Foster, Joe Hayden, Marquise Pouncey, and Ben Roethlisberger have all been given veteran days off this past week, and of course should be good to go for Sunday.
Friday, today is going to be a big day for Matt Feiler. I'm guessing he's going to be limited again and listed as questionable, so we'll see what happens there. But hopefully he's not going backwards. Now, Tomlin did say he finished out the game, but I think Matthew Marksy either wrote about it or tweeted about it that Feiler got hurt on the last drive. So finishing out the game doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. But yeah, if not, and even if Feiler does play, you're going to have a real good plan to block up Von Miller. And if it's a core four, then, that's a heck of a matchup for your first start.
Yeah, they're probably going to have to give them. We'll break that down a little bit
Right.
more in depth here in a little bit. All right, we tackled Tomlin. We tackled the MVP race. What about the article that Pro Football Focus had this past week, talking about T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree, that they aren't having the career years you think they're having?
Yeah, it was an interesting perspective. Basically, just saying that a lot of their pressure and sacks have come from unblocked or schemed up or kind of just cleanup plays is the term that they use. And I don't have the article pulled up actually. I don't have all the exact numbers, but basically just kind of downplaying the season they've had. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, Dave, on kind of where they're at and how impressed you've been, and if you think that angle. I don't know if you saw the article or not. that angle's accurate in terms of how they describe the job Watt and Dupree have done this year.
Well, here's what they have on as far as the stats go. Through week 11, Watt and Dupree have earned career high pass rush grades at 68.4 and 64.1 respectively, but their career best marks still rank 28th and 42nd compared to the 62 NFL edge defenders with 200 plus rush snaps this season. Following suit, excuse me, my voice this morning, Watt and Dupree ranked just 26th and 40th in win rate respectively. Goes on to say that of the 47 NFL edge defenders with 20-plus pressures this season, Dupree and Watt have the 5th and 6th highest percentage of pressures charted as either unblocked or cleanup pursuit pressures. Free pressures at 45.7% and 45.5% respectively. Those are just numbers now. Look, I am a fan of high quality sacks and pressures, but I am also a fan of sacks and pressures any way you can get them, whether they be unblocked, schemed, or what have you. You cannot fault a guy for having to run free to, for example, the interception against, for Carolina, with that play there. You cannot fault guys. I mean, how many times have we seen Watt have to go through a tight end this year? And overall, with the eyeball test, with their pass rushing ability this year, both look improved, especially with Watt in some of the bend around the outside and making sure to try to get a hand in and strip the football away. That's been impressive. And we've seen Dupree do a little bit more. Now, do both guys have a ways to go as far as their craft and counters, and I guess what the message PFF's trying to get across is clean wins, if you will. Yeah, I think they do, but I mean at the same time, when you look at this Steelers defensive front, assuming Tuitt's part of it, you have some high pedigree guys in there. In Watt and in Dupree and in, of course, Hayward, Tuitt, a second rounder, Hargrave, when he's in there in some base or most recently some sub-package stuff. Somebody should be getting home,
Mm-hmm.
and so is it more, is it a chicken and an egg type thing? Is it pressure? No matter how you get it, scheme, the end result is the end result. And some can say, well, you're coming off of a results basis there. Well, yeah, I mean that's the name of the game, is to put pressure on the quarterback and either force him off his mark or put him on the ground. And as a whole this year, the Steelers front has been able to do that. You and I talked, pretty extensively. I don't know if you have the blitz numbers in front of you, but I think just PFF alone continues to have Steelers as one of the highest blitzing teams overall. But once again, blitzes, you hear the term blitz, and I think people automatically think you're sending more than 4, and that's not always the case with the Steelers. But I think Keith Butler has done a good job of winning with what he has. And can they win? Can they continue to win with what's going on right now? Absolutely, they can. On the flip side, would you still like to see Watt and Dupree improve, in the technical aspects of pass rushing? Yes.
Yeah, I think you look at it from two different areas. One is the results, and if you're Keith Butler and if you're the Steelers, you don't really care about how you're getting the pressures, if they're free or not. Oftentimes, they're designed to get someone free. If you stress the line protection one way, then someone's going to get open and someone's going to get a free look at the quarterback, which is what you want. But you can also look at these guys from their own individual standpoint and just look at them and how they're playing. If you were to assume, let's just assume they were free agents. I know they're not, but let's assume that they were. Are they playing well enough to where your team would want want to sign them. So you have to look at it from the individual, and them getting free schematic pressure isn't going to be part of your evaluation. I think I'm with you, Dave, that both have improved by a lot. I like Watt's ability to finish. I think Dupree's been healthy this year. I think he's shown a little bit more power. I think he's got his hand use is improved, and ditto with Watt. But yeah, there's a way to go for both of these guys. I think they aren't playing necessarily quite as well as some of the numbers indicate because of those free pressures and those schematic pressures. And also they're rushing just a lot more this year. Watt's coverage ratio and percentage has gone way down from like 37% last year to around 25% this year. Dupree's number isn't as dramatic, but he's rushing more than he did last year as well. And so you would expect those pressures and those sack numbers to go up because those guys are just given more opportunities to get after the quarterback. So there's some context to be had as well. So I think both have played better, but I think there's a ways to go still for both of those guys.
And they end this. They have a comparison for those of you who may not have read the post on PFF yet. They compare Watt with Beasley from the Falcons, and they talk about Watt is following in Beasley's footsteps, as he too owns a low win rate and an astounding 30.3 sack percentage through Week 11, which stands as the second highest in football. And if Watt is indeed the sequel to Beasley's fallout, regression is bound to enter the picture here. So all that matters is the end result, obviously. And once again, we're going to learn, I think, so much more about this defensive side of the football for the Steelers when they play the Chargers here in a couple of weeks. And then, of course, not long after that, you get the Patriots, and as we talked about earlier in the show, the Saints in Week 16. I mean, this week you get a Denver Broncos offensive line that, when we were talking to our beat writer earlier in the week, Ryan O'Halloran, that they're missing. They have a rebuilt interior portion of the line. Their tackles haven't been. I don't know what you've seen so far out of their tackles. So I mean, I guess it's a portion of the show where we start trying to break down what the game against the Broncos. But I think their tackles aren't playing bad overall. I think where the real key for them in protecting Case Keenum this Sunday will be in the interior portion of the line.
Right. The tackles have been healthy this year. They're big guys. They're physical guys. Garrett Bowles on the left side, Jared Veld here on the right. It's that interior line that you mentioned, Dave, that's really taken a hit. They lost Matt Paradis, who was an underrated center, against Houston. The left guard, was it Max Garcia, I think is his name, went down in practice with a torn ACL like a week ago. So they have, as Ryan O'Halloran talked about, they got a couple tackles playing guard. Billy Turner, who was a Dolphins cast-off. Elijah Wilkinson. Connor McGovern, I think, is kicked inside the center now, so or maybe right guard. It's a line that has had a lot of changes, but to their credit, they played really well last week. No sacks allowed. I think they averaged 5.7 yards per carry in that win over the Chargers, so I'm not taking anything for granted or any guarantees just because that line's beat up because they played a heck of a game last week versus a Chargers team that was getting Joey Bosa back.
I think the key, as it is in any game, especially with these middle to bottom tier kind of quarterbacks, and that's where would you put Case Keenum at in the top 25 quarterbacks currently in the league?
Yeah, probably that bottom third, like the top of the bottom third, maybe, if that makes sense, somewhere around there.
Obviously the Steelers aren't really a stranger to him, having to see him start week 2 last year. And I mean, we all know what the goal in that game. They were able to run quite well. And the Steelers, of course, how many times did the Steelers turn the football over in that game? There was the Eli Rogers punt that provide fumble on a punt that provided.
That was against
Chicago.
Chicago. It was next week.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how.
I don't remember turnovers being a big issue that game, but maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Let me look back real quick at what they did in that game and how Keenum performed in that game.
Now, that was Keenum's first start, to be clear, after Bradford went down.
He was 20 of 37 for 167 yards in that game.
Yeah, But it was all, again, his first start. It's a different kind of feel this time around, I think.
He did not throw an interception in that game. They did have the one turnover. I'm trying to remember what that turnover was in that game. It was obviously a fumble. Thielen had a fumble in that game.
I think that was late. I think it was like the last play of the game or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
don't remember. Let's see. Yeah. In fact, you're right. Looking at it right now, it was a 4th and 7 late. Yeah. Right before the final 2 kneel downs by Roethlisberger. Emmanuel Sanders is a guy that we know quite a bit about. I mean, he is a guy that can do everything for you. More of a obviously more probably of a possession guy. Then of course they have Sutton over there who has progressed obviously since Demaryius Thomas has been traded. A guy that can stretch the field for you. Running the football, Lindsey is a guy they're going to try to get on a perimeter and get the ball out into his hands in open space.
Right. I look at Sanders and Sutton. I think the numbers tell a very clear story. Now, they can both win in multiple ways, but Sanders has kind of become the more possession guy. He's caught 75% of his targets this year. He's averaging 12.5 yards per catch, where Sutton is catching less than half his targets, but he's averaging 20 yards per catch. That's number one in the NFL, the only receiver that's qualified to average 20 yards per catch or more. So, they have their deep threat, they have their possession guy, they're getting Jeff Hireman, who I think the Steelers showed interest in coming out, more involved this year. He's having a career year, and like you said, it all kind of comes back to Phillip Lindsay and that Broncos run game, which statistically is number one in the NFL, and you're right, they will get the ball in the perimeter, but they also will kind of go with that old school Gibbs Shanahan inside zone, and, Lindsay and this team's not afraid to pound it inside as well.
Case Keenum on 3rd and 7 or more this year has just a 59.5% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's been sacked 10 times on 3rd and long situations, and I think in total he's been sacked 23 or 26 times this year. So, almost half of his sacks are coming on 3rd and 7 type situations here. Of his 25, like I said, 25 out of 42 for 59.5%. Only 14 of those 25 completions resulted in a successful play, meaning either a touchdown or a first down there. So, obviously with him, you want to get him in predictable type situations here, and that of course would mean stopping the run early. I would expect to see in order to slow that Steelers pass rush down, quite a few quick design screens to Lindsay out in space, quite a few short dump offs to you're probably going to see some wide receiver screens to the outside, and then the tight end over the middle on either some zone settle downs or those kind of things. So I think that their goal would obviously be somewhat similar to Jacksonville. I mean, look, they shouldn't be expected to have the success between the guards that Jacksonville did with that stable of backs that they used. But if they do, shame on the Steelers front for that. But I think it's going to be a lot of stuff. Look, how much on film have you seen them try to run kind of some outside zone stuff?
A little. It used to obviously be a huge part of the Alex Gibbs days and the Shanahan, and with Terrell Davis, it was inside zone, outside zone, 2 back, 1 back. That was it. This Broncos team is more varied in its run game. They'll do some split zone. They will, run power, which is probably more prevalent than it's been in the last decade for Denver. They will wham you sometimes too. They will get, if the Steelers line up in their over front, which is where the nose tackle's tilted in the A gap against some 2 tight end sets, the Broncos will respond by whamming you, or taking that tight end and down blocking the nose tackle and kind of ear holing him to tell him don't line up in that gap again. And so I might not play that over front that Keith Butler played against Jacksonville. I think the Broncos have 2 very distinct styles in their pass game. One is the very short, quick game. They line up with twin wide receiver sets, 2 receiver to a side, or 2x2 formations, and they will just run dual slant patterns to the 2 receiver side. So watch for that quick game. I want to line with inside leverage, especially if you're the slot corner, if you're Mike Hilton, to deny that quick slant. And then to kind of bounce off of that, they will go with their play action deep ball game, where they will go max protect, 2 receivers in the pattern, and they will look to take a shot deep, and hopefully they kind of get you guys, the defense, on discipline. So watch for the real quick game, that 3-step slant, and then watch for the play action out of heavy personnel as well.
What do you expect them to use? A lot of heavy personnel groupings to start with?
They mix it up. They don't have a clear real number 3 receiver since Demaryius Thomas has been traded and Sutton has gone from the number 3 to the number 2 guy. They will go with 13 personnel. They have a fullback, Andy Janovich, who has played, I think, the 5th most snaps of any fullback this year, but he's a better receiver than most fullbacks, and they'll play him at some tight end as well. So they mix up their personnel groupings pretty well. They can go heavy. They can go 3 receiver sets as well.
All right, what scares you the most about the Denver offense?
Big play potential, definitely. Sutton, Lindsey, 2 game-breaking guys. Now, the Steelers have done a great job of keeping a lid on things. You have to give them a ton of credit for just the season in aggregate, but also this win streak has been even more impressive than the season in its totality. But they still have some fast guys on the field with Sutton, who's a burner, Lindsey, who's a burner. Like you said, they throw a screen, they get a shot deep off play action. It's always going to be that threat in the back of your mind. And Case Keenum, again, is not a great quarterback, but he is a serviceable and competent quarterback, which Blake Bortles was not, and so they're going to get the ball in their hands of their playmakers because Keenum's going to be good enough to let them do that.
And he's like I compare him a little bit to more of an Alex Smith type quarterback, but he can he can throw the deep ball too. So and we've seen that. What kind of are you expecting some trickeration?
Not necessarily. They did run a fake punt. I think it was last week. The punter threw a 12-yard pass to Janovich, the fullback that converted. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. They probably won't do it again because they just put it on tape. But I don't think they're a super trickery kind of team. They just want to get the ball in the hands of the guys that make plays for them.
All right, defensive side of football. Obviously, Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. 2 guys to watch in this one, especially if Chooks has to start even if Feiler has to start,
or Gilbert. I don't care who it is. It's Von Miller.
Von Miller is a very disruptive guy, and Chubb is starting to show that why he was drafted where he was drafted as well too. The thing with Von Miller, and he's predominantly a left side guy. Meaning that if you look at the left side of their defense from behind, he'll be lining up on the left side of it. He has, I think, somewhere a little shy of 150 snaps on the right side as well too. So they will move. They will move those 2 guys around.
Right. Those are the 2 guys you have to deal with. 19 of Denver's 31 sacks this year come from 2 guys. Von Miller with 10, Chubb with 9. I don't know the numbers on that, but I'm guessing that's one of the highest kind of ratios, percentages of the top 2 sack guys to the overall number of sacks. So where the pressure's coming from. No other Bronco has more than 2 sacks this year. It's Miller, it's Chubb. That's the easy part. You identify it, but the hard part is how to block it up. So as Ben said, as Tomlin said, you're going to have multiple people help out that right side regardless of who the right tackle is. And so that means the back chipping, the tight end staying in. Jesse James, Vance McDonald are going to have to do some of that dirty work this week, which is smart. But then you worry, okay, we have one less guy out in the pattern now because the tight end's got to stay in, or the tight end's chipping that limits his route tree and kind of becomes just a check down option. So now you only have, say, 3 receivers in the pattern against a secondary that still has talent. Now those guys, those receivers, are going to be really counted on to win their matchups because it's going to be harder to get guys in conflict, defenders in conflict. It's harder to get a good scheme and to kind of set things up conceptually. So guys are just going to have to win their matchups, and to be honest, that does worry me a little bit.
And the rest of their front, Dometo Peko, who we know quite a bit about from his time in Cincinnati with the Bengals. Derek Wolf's no slouch. Surprised a little bit that his sack numbers aren't a little bit higher so far this year. And then Adam Gostis plays some defensive end for him as well too. They probably don't rotate up front as much as probably you would think they would, right?
Actually, I think they rotate a good bit. I was surprised by the level of depth and how many guys get in there for a 3-4 front. Like in Pittsburgh, that it's basically 4 guys. The starting 3. Then Alulu gets in. I mean, McCullers will play some, but you kind of know that who it is. And Denver feels like they have 6 different guys that will rotate along that defensive line. The one guy I would attack when he's in there, he's a backup guy, so you don't know for sure, when he's going to play. But DeMarcus Walker, number 57, he was kind of a tweener, hybrid guy coming out of Florida State with good production, but an average athlete, and you just didn't know where you were going to play him. He's been a base end for them, but he's listed 280, and he looks about the part. So if you get Ramon Foster, who's 340 on a good day against Walker, that's a matchup in the run game I'm looking to exploit.
Their rush defense to against them on runs that go to left tackle and left guard, that is where they're the most vulnerable.
And Walker plays right end, so that makes sense.
And that seems to where you could see a lot of power, right? I mean, this kind of sets up for a good game to potentially, if you can block it on the backside, pulling DeCastro.
Right. They do some one gapping and some slanting, so you want to be mindful of that. But power could definitely work more successful than it was against Jacksonville. Some duo blocks up front, those double teams to get some of those, like I said, a guy like Walker kind of pushed off the ball. That's a matchup I want to win, though. Ramon Foster, whenever Walker comes in, and it's a rotational guy, it's not a starter, but when he's in the game, I'm running after DeMarcus Walker.
I think they have almost right around 90 plays on runs to left of middle against them, and they're giving up an average gain of well over 6.3 yards.
Ooh, that's a big number.
And that, like I said, I think it's almost 90 runs I looked at there. So this is a team that you should be able to run on, especially to the left side of the Steelers formation. One other thing here is it doesn't look like Brandon Marshall's going to play at inside linebacker. So that means Josie Jewell, the rookie out of Iowa?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Iowa.
It was going to make another start in this one too. So that might be something else you try to exploit there.
Yeah, but he's played well this year, and he's been an every down kind of guy. When they go down, I've seen Jewell stay on the field, so it's him and Todd Davis. But yeah, it like you said, it's a team that you should run on. I think Ryan was talking with us Wednesday that the run defense started off hot, and then it dropped to, I think, at one point the worst in football, and now they sit 22nd in yards per carry allowed at 4.7. So James Conner we'll see, but he should have a much more successful day on the ground this time around.
What have you seen from the secondary and what they like to do? Roby, of course, is coming off of a concussion. I think he sat Wednesday, was limited on Thursday, and all their beat writers seem to think that he'll probably go full today and, of course, be able to play Sunday. On the other side of Roby is Chris Harris Jr., who Antonio Brown, I think, has had some good success against in some past games against him. And, of course, in the back, we'll probably see Darian Stewart down low quite a bit as a strong, and then Justin Simmons playing the free role.
I really like Justin Simmons. I think he's done a nice job this year. Great athlete. So I think it's a talented secondary. I think that they're better than the numbers have shown. I think they've forced some turnovers. They got 10 interceptions this year from a lot of different places. But you can get after Chris Harris. He's the top guy, obviously. But like you said, AB's gotten after him before. It's a man coverage heavy team. You go 3-by-1, you're likely to get cover one. They're not going to blitz a lot. They want their secondary guys, their coverage guys to cover. But like I said, the biggest concern I have is just knowing you're keeping extra people in to help out with the pass rush. That's going to make those guys have to win one-on-one, and they can. They're capable of it. But it's a talented secondary that can make some plays on their own, especially if Roby plays, which we'll see. And so that's going to put the onus on guys to win the routes and Ben to make some great throws.
This sets up another decent game for Juju as well too.
Yeah, it should. If they got Harris traveling on AB, then you got Tremaine Brock or Roby or whoever else they put in there against Juju. So I always expect Juju to make an impact, to have strong games, because that's just kind of where he's at in his career. He just turned 22 too. He finally had his birthday yesterday. It's just crazy to think about, Dave. But what Ben talked about. But what have you seen from Juju that's allowed him to play even better from last year to this year? Anything in his game that's different?
What have I seen?
Yeah.
I think more recognition of soft areas and all. I mean, look, he it's not hard to run that over route, but I mean, I think just overall recognition and finding the soft areas. He's starting to learn how to play kind of that backyard football a little bit more.
Have you seen a guy that's so young with that kind of football IQ? Because I don't think I have. I mean, you've watched a lot more football than I have.
I wouldn't go that far, but I will say this. Here's if you want to find anything to complain about with Juju, it's just those bobbles and the drops. I mean,
Hmm.
he's still a very good contested catch guy. I mean, as evidence in that game against Jacksonville and those two late grabs. But sometimes the easier ones, I wouldn't say easier ones, but I mean,
Catchable ones.
yeah, catchable ones. You'd like to see him do
Hmm.
a better job on. I mean, I think he's just a perfect fit in the slot. I mean, he is everything that his college tape showed, and that's kind of what's concerning. I think right now, and Ben talked about this past week too, when it comes to James Washington. I think we're really starting to see uh, maybe the level of competition that Washington had to go up against versus maybe what Juju had to go up against in college there. And Ben talked about again about the route tree. And I thought when going through all the college, I watched every damn snap that Washington played in college. I thought overall he ran a pretty decent route tree. Now I said several times that
Mm.
most of it came from the right side. 98% of it came from the right side of the formation,
Right.
and does he need to be more refined with his route tree? Absolutely. And does Ben trust him yet? The way he quickly started trusting Juju during his rookie season? Absolutely not. I mean, I think that's evident. I think, even going back as far as a couple of games ago on that quick out, who was it? Was it against Baltimore, I think, where he didn't get his head around quick enough on an early
Hmm.
on an early kind of out route there. Little things like that are things that I probably didn't pay enough attention to when looking at Washington's tape, college tape. But also he wasn't asked to he was asked to run those 12-yard outs quite a bit, but not so much those 7-yard quick outs,
Hmm.
And I think that's, I mean, it's obvious that he does not have the confidence right now. When's the last time we've seen him try to take a deep shot over the top to Washington?
Wow. Week 4 against Baltimore? I don't even know. It's been a while.
Whereas just a couple of games ago, we saw kind of from the slot position, what'd you like to call that? You didn't call that. You called that a seam.
The smash seam
The smash seam to
against Carolina.
the first play against Carolina there. You'd like to see Washington be able to start do some of those things and start contributing to the explosive plays anywhere on the field, and that's one area where Juju has instantly been able to do that, even going back as far as last year. I mean, you go back to the game against Detroit, right? Ben had saw something on tape earlier in that game, and they made the adjustment. He told him to go to go over, I think, the defender in the middle instead of under, and then he followed directions well. So I think look, I mean, there's nothing not to like about Juju at this point other than him dropping a few catchable balls.
To go back to Washington, I swear that Ben follows you on Twitter. I know it's not his Twitter account,
Nah.
or he listens to this because he's mentioned that Washington lined up on the right side, exclusively basically, which is what you were all over, and a tip of the cap to you. So I don't know if he's reading the scouting reports or what, but I think that's probably the biggest difference why you've seen Juju develop so quickly and Washington struggle, because for most rookie receivers they do struggle, but Juju's case was unique because he was a versatile guy, because he played outside, he played inside, he had to know the route tree for both, and he had to really know the entire offense, and I think that really accelerated his development coming to the NFL because his football IQ is off the charts, and maybe
go ahead.
I was gonna say his football IQ is off the charts. It's incredible for me, and I think that's an innate thing, that's a work ethic thing, and that's just kind of, sometimes some guys just have it, but it's also, I think, fostered because of all he was asked to do at USC, where Washington was more of a one spot kind of guy.
Well, here's the thing, going back to Juju is, let's admit, or at least on my end, it was a surprising pick to me, and I really hadn't studied Juju a whole heck of a lot ahead of the draft that year.
Same. I was the same.
Because I was more on, I think, Chris Godwin, and I lose track of some of the names at this point. I had a good idea that the Steelers would probably draft a wide receiver within maybe the first 3 or 4 rounds that year, but Juju was well down my radar, and thus I didn't study him. And then, of course, after the draft with them, having to break down the other, I did not do ahead of his rookie season. I did not do the breakdown, the complete breakdown on Juju that I did on Washington this year. So I obviously felt like I knew more about Washington heading into this season than I obviously did about Juju last year. Now, obviously, after the fact of him being drafted, you get to go back and watch everything, but I didn't go through and contextualize every target of his the way I did Washington this year. So, but I think now that after the fact, more time has passed, and we we have the time and have had the time to go back and watch Juju, we've been able to see that he was able to do a whole heck of a lot more in college from different positions than Washington did.
Right. No, I totally agree. And then, I was with you that Juju was not on my radar when I drafted him, so I really didn't know how to react when the pick was first made. But after watching him for several games, not as critically as you did in terms of an every target kind of basis, but just watching several games of his, you could see why they drafted him. And like you said, he wasn't unknown because they talked to him once at the Combine, 15-minute interview, and that was it. That was the only communication that they had. Obviously having Lynn Swann as the AD helped out a lot in knowing what you were getting in Juju, so that was a hidden factor there. But yeah, the Juju's football IQ, and it's not Washington's fault because his work ethic's strong, and he'll get there, I think. But just the way that Juju was used, his football IQ was higher than where Washington's was at in their rookie years.
The thing that I wish that we would have seen out of Washington so far to date is him be able to stretch the field like he was able to do at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And he hasn't, but we made a big deal. I mean, it was a great catch along the sideline against the Jaguars, but the fact that we're making a big deal out of, say, like a 12-yard out route and a nice catch along the sideline, and up until halftime, that was probably the highlight, one of those few highlights the Steelers offense had up until that time. You just obviously would like to see a little bit more, but Ben's obviously not going to force the ball his way because you just don't trust him right now, and you do have other weapons on offense anyway, which makes it nice. But it would be nice to see Washington, be able to pop one here.
It would. And I think trust is part of it. Obviously, the trust in AB and Juju is off the charts compared to Washington, but it's just not even that. It's just that Washington is never the first or second read in the progression because they want to get this offense through the guys that have proven themselves, like AB and Juju, and obviously what Vance McDonald's been able to do this year. James Conner's a check down screen option. So just, how many play calls are really intended to get the ball to James Washington per game? 1, 2, if you take a deep shot, you get a right look. And that's the reason why his numbers are down, just because he's going to be a scramble option, a fourth read in the progression, a full field read kind of guy, make something happen, and that's just, you're rolling the dice if you get production or not.
Maybe we'll have a watershed moment, if you will, on into later into the season, and maybe the playoffs sort of similar to what Antonio Brown had, way back right. during his first season there. Now, obviously, Antonio, I don't think I had to go back and try to dig up the snap counts. Didn't see near the amount of playing time that Washington has seen so far through his first 10 games. But there was that big catch against the Ravens late in the playoffs, I think, the old helmet catch down the sideline, and that kind of became the moment, I guess, for Antonio Brown during his rookie season. So maybe we'll be in line for that. But what are you doing? Are you using a lot of heavy early against the Broncos? 2 tight ends, some rosy occasionally, or are you coming out and trying to spread them out with 11 personnel?
I think in this game you can do both. I think you should do both. I wouldn't want to go into one thing where you're just going 11 or you're just going heavy. I think you're capable of winning in both fashions. So if you want to start heavy for the first drive, I'm cool with that. You want to start with 4 receivers set in the first drive, I'm okay with that. I mean, you should be able to attack this Denver defense in multiple ways. One, because they're not quite as good as they've played. But too, your offense is just so good. You have so much confidence in the guys you have that you can win in multiple ways. So maybe you hit with some screens early, try to slow down that pass rush. I think Feiler overdid it against Baltimore. What team was it? I don't remember which team I was talking about, them doing too many screen passes against. But yeah, the first thing is you want to try to get Miller and Chubb thinking, slowing down a little bit. So hit with a couple of screen passes maybe on that first drive just to slow those guys down a little bit and have to wait, okay, were they running the screen on this play or not? That might be a good way to kind of get that first drive going.
I think it comes down to with James Conner, the way we've talked about a few times, the more successful plays he has earlier. When you go back and I don't know how much you watched that Saints game last night against the Falcons. They had such the thing I admire about the Saints running game is both of those backs, Kamara and Ingram, do such a good job of getting yards when it looks like nothing's there.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do we see in the first, quarter of that game of it looking like a run was going to go for 1-0 or for loss, and it ends up a 4 or 5 yard gain.
A lot.
And then they're able to build up off of that with some of the play fakes that they used in that game. They just are not. You have those Falcon linebackers moving forward, especially on was it the first touchdown? I think the first 2 touchdowns were great kind of run action that really freed up down the field there. Now, obviously, there was a blown coverage, I think, on the third touchdown that they had there. But once again, I think that was a result of a good play fake. Why do you suppose Ben doesn't like running so much play action? It's one thing that it seems we talk about, for the last 3 seasons. He's so good when he does use play action, stats-wise. Why do you suppose they don't use more play action?
Well, I don't think they prefer being under center a lot because Ben's mobility isn't what it was, and I think they want Ben just to be able to read the whole field. I don't know, what the numbers are for how often they work under center. It's got to be like bottom.
Yeah, I don't have the rankings or anything, but obviously Ben doesn't use it a lot.
Right, and it's just harder to run play action out of shotgun. I wish they would use pistol. I know I always gripe about that. I thought they would use it more this year, and clearly they haven't. But I thought pistol was kind of a good merge and mesh between getting some of the downhill run action, being able to run play action, but keeping Ben away from center. But we'll see.
All right. So in other words, we expect the Steelers offense to be able to move the football on this Broncos defense, right?
Well, they're capable of it. Now, Denver's no slouch either, so, it's not a cakewalk. You're not facing Tampa here or the banged-up Bengals or Atlanta from a couple weeks ago. Denver's going to pose a challenge in a lot of different ways. The last thing I want to talk about Denver real quick is special teams. You gotta hold your breath, and you got to make sure things are blocked up well anytime you're kicking or punting. Denver has 3 blocks this year, 1 on a field goal, 1 on an extra point, 1 on a punt. Justin Simmons on that field goal extra point block against Baltimore. He leaped over the long snapper. He's got a 40-inch vertical. He leapt over the long snapper and blocked it. So those guys are going to get after you. So you have to make sure that you're on your P's and Q's when you're kicking a punt because Denver can make you pay.
And, of course, on their return game, we don't have to worry about Adam Pac-Man Jones because he's gone now. So it'll be interesting to see how they attack that now. They list Devontae Booker as a kick returner and River –
Craycraft, I think is his name.
Yeah, I haven't watched any of him yet. So
I just love the name, River Craycraft.
The Saints really were trolling the Falcons last night. 4 undrafted free agents with touchdowns. I
still don't believe Dan Arnold is a person. I think they made that person up.
I tell you, he really is one of those hybrid wide receiver tight ends.
Mm-hmm. They said he played receiver in college, right? D3 school, Wisconsin something.
All right, shall we? Where to now?
Well, real quick, I guess speaking of hybrid receivers, just to touch on it for 2 seconds, Steelers worked out a hybrid guy, Billy Brown from Shepherd, who played receiver in college and then moved to tight end in the pros, and they worked out a couple of those tight end H-back types. So just a small note, probably emergency list thing, but something to pass along.
Yeah, and the only reason I can think might be behind, this is really the time of year where you kind of look at guys that you might want to think about signing to futures deals. I mean,
That's true. That's a good point.
Because they still have what's the kid on the practice squad, the tight end they signed,
Bucky Hodges.
Right, Bucky Hodges is still there as well. So the only reason I can think about them working out guys like that is for futures stuff, or should something happen to one of their tight ends later in the season. I can't see. And why we at this point with Chickalo practicing, and I mean we're not. Denier obviously resumed practice this week, but I think both of us would be shocked if he got activated to the 53 on Saturday. I don't see a reason, as long as Chickalo's a full go, to pull up Keon Adams or Huguenin either. So, I mean, we'll definitely know by Saturday at 4 what the plan is there, but probably status quo on the 53-man roster this week.
Yep, I'm not expecting any moves to be made. They're a good point about getting kind of the futures guys ready. That was Mike Hilton's spot 2 years ago when they brought him in for a workout and signed him, and you guys know the story from there. Dave, before we get to
Rosie Nix a couple years before that too, several years before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to always remember these names. Any of these guys can make it, and that's the important thing to remember. Just because it's not just about the first rounders. Dave, before we get to our picks, you want to talk about our friends at MyBookie?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about MyBookie here as soon as I can find my script here. Sure, watching football is fun, but it's more entertaining when you have some action on the games. Guys and girls, you've heard me talking about this for several weeks now, and some of you are still on the sidelines. Whether you're an expert or a rookie, you should be betting at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. If you're the kind of guy or gal that likes to bet a little and win a lot, like playing numbers on a roulette table, you can create a big parlay. Pick 3 teams to win, and if you hit all 3, you could turn $100 into $600. There's so much to bet on at MyBookie. College basketball, obviously in full swing now. College football, all football, NBA, NHL, custom props, even esports, you name it. You can bet at it at MyBookie. MyBookie is one bet that I know you'll be happy with all year. I recommend these guys because I trust them and I use them. MyBookie's been in business for years. They've got great online reviews, and their mobile site is very easy to use. Sign up this week, and MyBookie will give you a 50% deposit bonus to jumpstart your bankroll. It's a great way to bank even more money when you win. Also, make sure to follow MyBookie on Twitter at BetMyBookie. They personally respond to every mention and direct message they get, not to mention that they've given away more than $10,000 in free money to their followers this football season. So in other words, get on Twitter and let them know, let at BetMyBookie know that you heard them on the Terrible Podcast, and you never know, maybe get some free money in there after you sign up. You'll be the first to know as soon as new odds and props are posted by following them on Twitter as well too. Don't miss out on one of the best weeks to bet on sports this year. Log on to MyBookie right now at mybookie.ag and use the promo code TERRIBLE, just like the Terrible Podcast. Use the promo code TERRIBLE to get 50% deposit bonus. That's promo code TERRIBLE. You play, you win, you get paid. And after a rough start in that first game yesterday, I rebounded there. Let's see, I had the Lions, the Cowboys, and the Saints, whereas you had the Bears, the Redskins, and the Falcons to cover. So I think I got you there. Let's get on into this week's games here while I pull up the lines.
It was close, though. I thought Washington was gonna pull it off, and then that field goal, the extra point at the end, you were rooting. You never rooted so hard for an extra point in your life.
I was sweating that one out there for sure. I had Calvin Ridley going in a high dollar fantasy football league too, and I was kind of perturbed that he fumbled that one at the goal line at the end as well. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Buffalo Bills. Jaguars, of course, coming off the loss to the Steelers. Bills are at home. The Bills are getting 3 points at home. What you got?
I'm going to take the Bills. Maybe that's a bit of an upset. I can't believe how good this Bills defense has been. I think that's the thing no one's talking about because the offense has been so putrid. But Buffalo is not allowed. I think it's one. Buffalo's allowed one completion of 40-plus yards this year. They've allowed 2 of 30-plus. Insane numbers no one's talking about.
Well, and Jaguars aren't a team that are going to probably rip you over the top with Blake Bortles. I mean, Jaguars are really. I mean, look, they're probably not going to make the playoffs here, but they definitely aren't if they don't win this game. I like Jacksonville to rebound this week, so I'll take the Jaguars minus the 3 points on the road. The Oakland Raiders at the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday, and Lamar Jackson ran all over the place in that game last week against the Bengals. This is a game the Ravens should win, and a lot of people, I mean, the spread shows us the Ravens at home given 10.5 points.
I like Baltimore to win, but that spread is pretty big. I'm going to take Oakland to cover in this one. I think Baltimore wins, but I think, if Jackson plays, you got a little bit of tape on him. Oakland, they'd surprise you just enough sometimes, so give me Oakland to cover.
I think Baltimore blows them out on this. I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar Jackson has 150 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in this one. Give me the Ravens lay the 10.5. San Francisco at Tampa Bay. Ooh, you want to talk about something to watch on a full belly. Tampa laying 3 points at home against the 49ers.
Give me Tampa, only reason because they're at home. San Fran coming a long ways. But, it's a game I will not watch.
This is going to be an interesting one because of the travel and all. Give me the 49ers. I'm not going to play this one, but give me the 49ers on the road plus the 3 points. The Fighting Eli's against the very disappointing Philadelphia Eagles so far this season. The Eagles are at home, and they're giving 6 points.
Give me the Giants in this one. I think the Giants can win this one. So maybe give them to me outright. My Eagles buddy who I talked to is really pessimistic. Now I guess that's probably just an innate trait for any Eagles fan this time of year. But he thinks he's picking the Giants to win this one. So I'll go with him and I'll take the Giants.
Giants have won their last 2, right?
They're turning things around.
I'm going to hop off the bandwagon this one. I think the Eagles get it back together this week. I'll take the Eagles, lay the 6 points at home. Cleveland at Cincinnati. This is going to be an interesting one for sure. Have you seen anything on A.J. Green if he's going to be able to be back this week?
Green did not want to talk to reporters today. Does not sound like he's going to go. Nothing official, but do not count on A.J. Green playing.
Boy, that Browns defense is something, and Baker's starting to get it there. And anyway, the Bengals are at home, giving 3 points. How much? I'm
gonna go Cleveland.
How much Hugh Jackson intel pays off here?
How much does it hurt you, really, at this point? Give me Cleveland on this one because I don't know what the Bengals are going to do for offense without A.J. Green. Joe Mixon ran the ball 12 times for 14 yards last week. I just don't know where they're going to get offense. I know Cleveland can get some offense, so give me the Browns. I've
been talking about how the Bengals might falter for most of the season here, and they are. I think that could continue on Sunday against the Browns. So I think the Browns can win this too outright. So give me the Browns plus the 3 points. The Patriots, fresh off the bye against the Jets, and the Patriots are road favorites by 10.5 points.
Yeah, I'm still going with the Patriots, even with being up 10.5 like that. Is Darnold starting this week? I actually don't even know, but regardless, I'm going New England.
Yeah, I'll go New England coming off of a bye, that much time to prepare. Yeah, give me New England lay the 10.5. This ought to be a good one. Excuse me. Seattle Seahawks traveling to play the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are favored at home by 3.
Give me Seattle outright. I think they're playing better. The Panthers have struggled more, coming off that Steelers loss. The Seattle's offensive line has actually done a nice job. Credit to the new offensive line coach after moving on from Tom Cable. I'm going to go Seattle in this one.
I think this has push written. I bet this ends up a field goal game with the Panthers winning by 3. But with that, I'll take the Panthers and lay the 3. I think Cam Newton able to have a good game, be able to do some of the things that they probably wanted to do against the Steelers there. So give me the Panthers, lay the 3 points there. Miami Dolphins on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. This should be another decent one, even though the Colts are favored at home by 8 points.
Yeah, give me the Colts in this one. I think that they're playing great right now. Frank Reich's got this team on the right track. The O-line's been physical. They're setting the tone. Defensively, they've done well. It was a really good article. I think it was in the Indy Star. I forget exactly what publication it was, but Mike Mitchell, the impact that he's had in that secondary with one of their cornerbacks, younger guys, Quincy Wilson. Mitchell's really worked closely with him, and Wilson said, he's crediting all this the success he's had to the job and the mentorship from Mike Mitchell.
All right, I'll go with the Colts as well. Lay the 8 points there. Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, of course, coming off of the last second loss to the Denver Broncos. The Chargers at home, favored by 13. Is that too many?
I'm gonna take the Cardinals. Chargers are gonna win. Cardinals will cover because that Cardinals defense is better than people will think. Steve Wilkes, a defensive guy. They have talent in that secondary, so they'll lose this game, but they'll cover.
I'm with you on this one, too. I like the Chargers to win this, but I think 13 might be a little bit too many there. So give me the Cardinals plus 13 on the road. Minnesota at home against Green Bay. Boy, Green Bay really needs to get on it right now. Chicago keeps winning. This is really, this must-win game for the Packers in division here. The Vikings are at home favored by 3 over Aaron Rodgers and company.
Give me the Vikings on this one. The Packers just seem like a mess. They don't know where they're getting exact offense from. The run game has stabilized a little bit with Aaron Jones, but I don't know. Just something about this Packers team this year. They just seem all over the place. So give me a more stable Vikings team.
That place is loud to play in, too. It'd be real loud. Give me the Packers. I think the Packers can win this outright. So give me the Packers plus the 3 points. Tennessee at Houston. This ought to be another decent one. Houston was on the bye last week, right?
I think so.
Houston favored over the Titans by 6.5.
Give me Houston.
This one, of course, is Monday night.
Okay, give me Houston on this one. It's just Tennessee. Mariota's been so banged up with that arm and the elbow injury he's dealt with, and the run game hasn't been super strong. And I think Houston's just kind of finding their groove. So I think they're getting that run game going with Lamar Miller. So I'm going to go with the Texans.
I think the Houston defense might end up being the difference in this one. I like that thing might go to 7. So if you're going to jump on it now. If you like the Texans, because I bet by kickoff it goes to 7. So give me the Texans minus the 6.5. That, of course, brings us to the Steelers and the Denver Broncos. The Steelers are favored on the road by 3 points.
I think they get the job done. I'm going to say Pittsburgh 27-17. No guarantees in this one. I don't want to, sleep on Denver just because they're 4-6. As we talked about on Wednesday's show, they've played 7 of their 10 games this year, been by 1 possession or less. And they have talent. They can win this one, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh because I think they're the better team.
All right. I think this is another one of those games that if you jump on them early, if the Steelers offense can get on track early here, and put, a couple, 10 points on the board in the first quarter, this thing could snowball out of control for Denver. I like the Steelers to cover here. I think maybe a late Denver touch. We've seen a couple of times this year, Cleveland and who else was there? Get kind of a late kind of cheap touchdown there. Give me the Steelers 24-13 in this one.
How confident are you? Not in the line, but just in the
Steelers. We know this team makes it tougher sometimes.
That's why I'm asking.
Than it should be. So, just if they can come out, they should be able to move the football on this Denver defense. And if they, the age-old thing, as long as Ben doesn't make any stupid mistakes, turn the ball over. If they can put up some early points in this one, once again, when it comes to the Steelers, you cannot let these teams hang around to the fourth quarter. And as long as they don't, I think they can win this one pretty comfortable. So,
what scares you the most? Although the question you posed to me earlier, what scares you the most about this one?
Just the turnovers, the short fields. If you let teams hang around when you do things like that, and which Ben's going to show up. That kind of thing. They should. When you look at the tape, and we talked about, they should be able to run the ball. You would think in this one, and that should help open up everything else on top of it there. So, the turnovers, explosive plays, I'm not so much worried about, especially if Artie Burns in on the field there. Lindsey is a dangerous back out in space, but I think they can combat that. So, if you get the good old-fashioned +2 Tox win in this, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yep, hopefully. We'll guess we'll find out here in a couple hours.
All right. Anything else any kind of late-breaking news? I haven't been watching the Twitter machine here.
Nope, not that I've seen other than just like I said, AJ Green probably not playing, but that's not relevant to Pittsburgh. That's all I have. Anything you got?
All right, no, that's it. All right, we'll get back together on Monday, first thing, and discuss what we hope is a Steelers win against the Broncos. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Always open to some critiques of the show, so let them fly at us. The Terrible Podcast at gmail.com. Also, we have a ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. If you so inclined, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit that ad-free button, upright navigational bar, and have a nice and safe Black Friday and a safe weekend. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.